Good morning, students. Today you will be having your first online class. We will be doing OT English, and our poem is Sonnet to Science by Edgar Allan Poe. The title says Sonnet. A sonnet is a 14-line poem, and this sonnet has been written by Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe is a poet who loves to have an imaginary world, and he is very, very upset that science is destroying his creation, is destroying his imagination. Now, when we come to the poem, we will see the first 4 lines, which reads as, Sonnet, true daughter of all times thou art, who alterest all things with thy peering eyes, why preyest on thus upon the poet's heart, vulture whose wings are dull realities. The poet addresses science, and he calls her the daughter of old times. When we talk about old times, we mean science of the past ages. And he poet compares science to a vulture. Now, a vulture is a bird of prey. It preys upon its victim. And here, the poet feels that science, in the form of a vulture, is preying upon his heart, doesn't allow him freedom to think and to imagine. And he wonders why, what can he do in this respect? And he calls the vulture dull realities. To him, science is dull because it kills his imagination, it kills his creativeness. He is not able to express, he is not able to enjoy his imagination and his imaginary works. When we continue with the next 4 lines, he asks, the poet asks science a few questions. He says, how can he love thee, or how deem thee wise, who wouldst not leave him in his wanderings, to seek for treasures of the jewel skies, albeit he soars with undaunted wings. He's questioning science. How can I love you? In what manner can I love you? In what manner can I label you as a wise person? Because you are interfering in my imagination. You are not giving me the freedom to wander, to roam about in the skies, to seek for jewels. Yes, in reality, you cannot go to the sky and to seek a jewel, but the poet imagines. He imagines the sky full of stars, perhaps, the moon over there, the sun shining over there, and he thinks, and he wants to imagine that these can be compared to jewels, and he can take these jewels without thinking whether it's real or not. And he wants to wander, he wants to go out wherever he wishes. And he says, science is stopping him. Science is asking for proof, because science does not accept imagination. Science does not accept illusions. Science wants facts, science wants proof, and the poet over here cannot actually prove that his jewels can be seen, his jewels can be touched, but he is only imagining the jewels that he can gather, and he wants to gather these. Now, he wants to seek these treasures in the jewel skies, and he cannot do this, and this hurts him. This makes him feel very, very sad. He goes on to read, hast thou not dragged Diana from her car, and driven the hamadryad from the wood to seek a shelter in some happy star, hast thou not told the naiads from her flood? Diana is a mythological figure. In Roman and in Greek mythology, Diana is supposed to be the goddess of the moon, and she is riding in her chariot. Now, in reality, the moon is not a person. The moon cannot ride. But this is a myth, and myths are just illusions which cannot be proved. But they give you a sense of happiness when you try to imagine and when you try to draw a picture of perhaps Diana, a beautiful woman, riding on a chariot and going across the moon. And then he talks about the hamadryads. Now the hamadryads are actually nymphs, and nymphs are nothing but spiritual creatures. They are like spirits, they are like fairies, and you actually cannot see them, but you can imagine them in an imaginary world. And it says that this hamadryad, it lives in the trees. Now, for it to live in the tree, that means it is alive, it is something living. And it is a belief that when the tree dies, these hamadryads also die with them. Therefore, the poet tries to say that if the tree is cut down, or if the tree is destroyed, then we are also destroying these creatures. He talks about the nymphs. The nymphs are in the tree, in the water. He talks about the water nymph. And he says that the water nymph, he says, again lives in the water. Now when you try to destroy their dwelling place, then you are destroying these nymphs. You are destroying the naiads. Now, the naiads are also fairies. They live in the water. They are supposed to be beautiful creatures. And in mythology, these naiads are actually fairies, but they normally entice the people who come into the sea, and they sometimes destroy them. But in the imaginary world, when you try to imagine a naiad, a beautiful woman floating in the water, it gives you a sense of pleasure. But science does not accept this. Science wants proof, and therefore, with science, these naiads are driven away. Their dwelling place has been destroyed. And in the last two lines, he talks about the elfins. The elfins are little elves. If you remember reading The Elves and the Shoemaker, they are small little fairies who normally help people unknown. And these elves, they love to play in the green grass. And the poet imagines looking at these little elves playing in the green grass in front of him. And this extends his imagination. This allows him to dream. This allows him to form words and his words into his poems. He translates his dreams into these imaginary figures into his works. And he says this science is now destroying him. It's destroying the time when he would love to live or to sleep or to lie under a tamarind tree and to let his imagination flow. He wants his imagination to go wild, so that in this wild imagination of his, he can record his poems. He is allowed to dream. He is allowed to enjoy himself. Now, Poe was quite upset and is quite upset when he finds that science is interfering in his works, in the sense that science is not accepting his works. Science wants proof, science wants answers, which the poet cannot give. That will be your class for today. You will be given some notes. You will copy out your notes in the notebooks, and we will meet again in the next class. Thank you.